Myth. I'll take out a 30-year mortgage and pay extra on it. I promise, I promise, I promise. I'll pay it like a 15. Truth is, life happens and something else will always seem more important. Never take out more, ever more than a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, and never take out more than a fourth of your take-home pay in a payment. Stay away from these adjustable rates, stay away from these balloon mortgages, stay away from these ARMs. We're going to cover that in detail. But let's look at the 15 versus the 30 for a second. A 15-year mortgage on a $225,000 mortgage at 6% has a payment on a 30-year of $1,349. On a 15-year has an $1,899 payment. That's a difference of $550. But here's what happens. When you pay 30 years of $1,349 a month, you pay for the $225,000 $485,000. When you pay 15 years of $1,899 a month, you pay $341,000 for that $225,000. So when you do the 15-year mortgage, you save yourself $143,874. This is a lot of money. And you save yourself 15 years in bondage, because you know what I figured out? 15-year mortgages, they always pay off in 15 years or less. 30-year mortgages that I promise I'm going to pay sooner don't always do it. As a matter of fact, most of the time they don't, because stuff comes up like the transmission goes out or we got to buy a prom dress. There's always a little bit of life happening in our budget, isn't there? And the first thing to go is the pay an extra routine is the first thing to go in the budget. So that is a myth. Don't take out a 30 and think you're going to pay it like a 15.
Is a 30-year mortgage really that much different from a 15-year mortgage? You bet it is. Let's take a look at the math behind both a 30-year and a 15-year, and then you can decide if it's really that big a deal. A 30-year mortgage on a $225,000 home with 6% interest has a payment of $1,349. Now on a 15-year mortgage, the payments would be $1,899. That's a $550 difference. Doesn't really seem like that much, right? Wrong. When you pay $1,349 a month for 30 years at 6%, you're actually paying $485,000 for your $225,000 home. Now, let's do the math for a 15-year mortgage on that same house. A monthly payment of $1,899 for 15 years at the same interest rate is a total of $341,000 for the home. So when you do a 15-year mortgage, you save yourself $144,000. Did you get that? By going with a 15-year instead of a 30-year mortgage, you saved yourself $144,000. That's a lot of money. And you end up saving yourself about 15 extra years of bondage. Still aren't convinced? Then let's take another look. Say you still have that same home with the same payment amount. Now, fast forward 10 years. The $225,000 loan on a 15-year note is paid down to about $98,000. After 10 years on the 30-year mortgage, that house is paid down to about $188,000. So what does that mean? It means that if you got a 30-year mortgage, you've paid almost $162,000. But you've really only knocked $36,000 off the loan. Let me put it another way. Over the past 10 years, you've given the bank $130,000. And if you're thinking about getting a 30-year mortgage and paying it off in 15, think again. Vacations, prom dresses, home improvements, something else will always seem more important. But you know the cool thing about a 15-year mortgage? It always pays off in 15 years, or less. The bottom line is this. If you think you're getting a better deal with a 30-year mortgage just because you're saving a few $100 a month, you're only thinking short term. If you open your eyes a little bit and start thinking long term, you'll see that you're literally throwing away hundreds of thousands of dollars. Don't sign up for a 30-year mortgage just because everyone else is. Hey, everyone else is broke.
I grew up in a family that was wonderful. Loving parents were always there for me emotionally, but we had our money struggles, like a lot of families do, and ultimately got into so much debt that we had debtors calling us to the point where we couldn't answer the phone, and at its lowest point, we couldn't afford dinner, and my dad had to sit down with us and say, we can't have dinner tonight. Well, having started as a teenager believing that I never wanted to have any debt, I started to think towards the fact that I one day wanted to own a house. And so if I never wanted to have any debt, I had to start saving to pay cash for a house. And I saw a graph that was very similar to the Ben and Arthur graph and showed me what a difference it can make to invest at an early age. And having time on your side and the power of compound interest, how that can enable you to save up for things that you maybe didn't even think were possible. And so that's why I decided as a teenager that it was important to start saving and investing. And having had no debt, I actually had interest working for me instead of against me, and that's huge.
One of the first conversations we had with our realtor where we're looking for a house was, we're paying with cash and this is how much we're going to pay. The conversation started to go, well, if you use it as a down payment, you can get a much bigger house. And we were like, no, let's start this conversation over again. This is how much we have and this is how much we're going to pay, because we're not entitled to getting a bigger house just because we can put in a larger down payment. We have this much money. This is how much we're entitled to. We're going to find a good deal for this much money that's going to work for us, or we're going to wait longer.
Now we got a 2,000 square foot home, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom. It's all the home we need for at least 10 years. I mean, we were able to get what we needed, what we wanted.
10 years ago, I was 18, and one of the things that I know now that I didn't know then, but I kind of was living it anyway, was just being okay with being weird. Looking back now, I think it was so valuable that I, didn't succumb to any of that pressure. We have our plan, we know what's best for us, and we're just forging ahead on that.
And we love seeing the different cultures, and in the first 3 years of our marriage, we've been able to go to Europe 5 times and pursue that passion while saving to pay cash for a house. And there are things that weren't important to us, like nice cars. So I drive an 18-year-old car with one working window that has over 200,000 miles on it, and I don't care because I'm going to Europe in 3 weeks. It's like, it doesn't matter because it's not important to me. And then our next passion we like to pursue is adoption, and adopting a child ourselves and also helping other people with adoption, ultimately being able to take care of orphans in that way. And that's the freedom that we have without having debt.
We haven't had any problems with FICO scores. When you're paying for something with straight up cash, you'd be surprised what you can do. It seems like there would be limits, but there really aren't.
We've rented apartments, we've gotten cell phones, we've had utilities, we've traveled around the world, and we haven't had to have a credit card for any of it.
Looking back on the experience, and even the way we live now, it didn't feel like it was hard. I mean, I get a lot of comments from friends and stuff saying like, well, how are you doing that? Like, that sounds like a lot of work. How do you, and it just really wasn't. It really, it just became a lifestyle at that point that we got very used to, and we're continuing to this day, and it just feels so natural and freeing.
And while it is exceptional in the sense that most people don't do that, I don't think we're that different from anyone else. The only difference was an idea. And the idea was to live debt-free and to not have something before we've earned it. And when you start with that idea young, there's so much power in the time that you have for compound interest to do its work. It's not even that hard to save up to pay cash for a house. The only difference is you have that idea now to start doing it, and most people just don't.